Okay, we're recording, and then I need to. Right, and we are live! Yay! Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. Welcome to the Defiant Jam sessions. This is our sixth edition of these live streams, where every 2 weeks we are having panels with people in the same industry or in the same theme. In this case, TradFi to DeFi. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, the panelists, and thanks to everyone who is now joining the stream. So first, I just just one technical one technical request. If you all can try to mute yourselves when you're not speaking, that way the sound is better for everyone. And with that, I will make brief introductions. But after that, I would like all of you to get into what you all do and how you made the jump from TradFi to DeFi. So we have Anna Andrionova. She's the CEO and founder of Akropolis and formerly at Lehman Brothers. Danny Chong, the co-founder of Tranchess, formerly at Crédit Agricole. Sidney Powell, CEO and co-founder of Maple Finance, formerly at National Australia Bank. And Rachel Lynn, co-founder and CEO of SynFutures, Deutsche Bank. So with that, I would love to just, get into all of your stories. Where in TradFi were you before, and what made you make the jump? And what are you doing in DeFi now? If you can just go through kind of that transition, and we can start with Anna.
So I've been predominantly on the private equity and private credit side and special situations. My move to crypto was really more of a, I guess, passion-driven move. I was super interested by. It was kind of early 2017. I started, and I had a few. I saw a lot of problems in traditional finance that have really been massively sort of brought to light or exaggerated during the Lehman collapse. And I was on the inside, kind of watching, and were involved in restructuring of the bank as well. So a lot of the things have been brought to light by the crisis that I guess most people wouldn't typically be aware of if you're not on the inside. I really saw a. I definitely saw a promise of an entirely new financial ecosystem, for sure. The one with new characteristics and new traits that could potentially address the issues and inefficiencies that we had before. So that was pretty clear.
It's crazy. I mean, your experience seeing Lehman Brothers collapse from the inside, because all of us in crypto, I think, have been inspired in some way or another by the financial crisis, the 2008 financial crisis. Bitcoin itself has it like literally ingrained in the blockchain with the Times headline on the first block. And you were there, like watching it happen. So to you, like, what were some of the lessons, the things that impacted you the most from seeing this collapse firsthand, and that made you say, this isn't right?
Okay, so the two aspects there. So one is is obviously you can change the underlying, the foundations, and you can change the tech as much as you want, but you're not going to really change human nature, right? So as far as the tech is concerned, what was very clear to me is that very few people truly genuinely understood the extent of exposures and risks that they were taking, right? For sure. I mean, I remember it took us, but to be fair, we were on the liquid side. So on the P and private credit, it took us, let's say, 3 or 4 days working with the risk team, the fixed income, to even begin to understand how bad things are, right? And I can't speak for the guys that were on the market side. Right? Now, so lack of transparency and real lack of understanding at the really deep level of the contagion effects of all the complex instruments that have been used, for sure. And most importantly, lack of understanding of how it's going to affect normal people outside of the bank, further down the road.
Right. So lack of clarity on like the levels of risk and lack of understanding of how these complex instruments were impacting finances, like the financial system and individual people's financial situation as well.
Yes, and the few people that did understand that in detail, right? It was clear that there's like pretty much nothing that you can do about it. Right.
And from there,
so lack of understanding wasn't a function of competence. It was just a function of complexity plus speed, right? And the fact that with lack of transparency, like you would lay one instrument over another, or package one instrument inside of another instrument, right? So essentially the demographic of people that really would understand the consequences of positions unraveling or certain let's say decisions that would impact those portfolios, there were very, very few.
Right. And now what are you doing at Akropolis?
So we had a new team, and we're working on 2 yield generating instruments where the yield would not be driven by altcoin inflation, but
no worries.
My dog is going crazy.
It's okay.
What the yield is a function of rebalancing fees and trading. Essentially, 2 old weather strategies that have proven to work within traditional finance. We tweak them for DeFi, and we're working on them right now.
Cool. Perfect. Okay, Danny, how about you?
Well, what convinced me to actually take the leap from TradFi to DeFi? I guess for all of us here, there's definitely the push and the pull factor. Well, being in TradFi space for many years, I was doing trading and also in sales, looking after the region. I guess we've seen how the TradFi space have grown actually in strength throughout all these years. But at the same time, we also see that year after year, we are kind of like doing the same thing, and every year it starts from zero, which is perfectly fine because we understand that that's how things work. But after being also in TradFi for quite a while, you know that certain stuff tends to be a bit more difficult to push, especially in the world of maybe trying to get technology on and off. And believe me, I guess if you're now trying to push technology in the firm, although there's a very good cooperation and a buzzword within the firm to kind of like be pushing certain technology out into the firm and sharing with the general client group and stuff, it is not that easy. So just to share also on my side, while I was doing project and trying to push something even on the global scale, I have many stakeholders to convince, including local heads, global head of products, global head of IT, so on and so forth. I guess what you can look at is it's very layered, and it takes a long time to move things. Although the willpower is there, and people do want to move things fast. I mean, I speak to everyone, everyone's keen. But you also notice that there can be a lot of different angles from, I guess, across regions, across stakeholders that may or may not agree with you, and there are always priorities across priorities to need to prioritize in that space. Also for me, I guess I'm someone who's quite straightforward. I tend to want to achieve things. Sometimes being in this environment, although I haven't gone through many years of having to maneuver around this style of setup, still kind of like you have to ask yourself that, okay, whether this is the thing that you want to do the next year and the following year and the year after. And I guess it's a natural kind of move to come to DeFi when you start to see many other projects out there sprucing up, day after day, doing very well, and also moving on very fast. It was a very natural pull, especially when something like Tranchess comes along. The idea was strong. We come to think about it, and it was only about execution. If I have to say what kind of like convinced me that I was making the right move, is after being with everyone, we start to get the collective thinking, getting the correct people. Things really move very fast. If I can just share, Tranchess was thought of a centralized last year, slightly towards the earlier part of the year. It was already launched, and it was already launched in June this year. I can't remember the exact date, but we definitely have got that launch followed by 1-2 months, and now we are into our 3rd month already. So things does move very fast. In fact, working with a team here is very fun and very exciting. There's no email clutter. Everyone comes together to talk on TG, and if you want to get certain things done, let's just do a call, and things start to move forward after the call. There is no like someone dragging their feet. There is no having to do with waiting for things to happen. Everyone just instinctively know, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that, and just gets along to doing things. If I have to give a bit of advice to people wanting to make the move to DeFi from TradFi, maybe I would say that you really need to adopt a more flexible and entrepreneurial kind of mindset. There will definitely be a lot of things that, because of the way how big firms are, there could be your human resource department, there could be your marketing department, there could be your various other middle back office support. You'll need to know almost all of this, how it works, and able to come together at the same time, getting these people, which could be just 1 or 2 person out there, working with you and getting things sorted out, or when there are kind of like obstacles, to really sort it at the next instant. You have to try and also preempt things before they come out. Well, as I say already, it's more like having your own business in that sense. You have to be on top of things. If you're ready for example, a 2 a.m. session talking to a fine group of people in a panel, that's definitely one of the prerequisites for you to be able to do this.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, no, we'll definitely get into all of your recommendations for people who want to make the same move. But what attracted you to DeFi, it sounds like, was just how hard it was to make meaningful changes at your TradFi institution, just like the layers of corporate bureaucracy that you need to get to include kind of just like the latest technologies and so on, and versus DeFi, where it looks like, like you said, you can get on a Telegram group and get things moving a lot faster. Yeah. And with Tranchess, if you can explain just a little bit what your project does.
Of course, my pleasure. So Tranchess, as you can see, is inspired by chess. Tranche basically is a French word that refers to a portion or slice of something, whereas chess, as we all know, comes from international chess. If you look at our logo, it's very, very obvious that We have a very kind of a strong chess team inside. Basically, Tranchess is asset tracking and management protocol. We actually cater to different risk reward kind of a profile. If you want to be tracking, for example, what we have now, a BTC, there will be actually several tokens that you need to know. And there will be Queen, which is the main fund, followed by the sub tranches, which is Bishop as well as Rook. So Queen will basically track, and there will be Bishop, which is no market risk, which is just basically a USDC-like peg token, followed by Rook, which is a leverage token, or you can call it a leverage BTC token. There we have the whole ecosystem for different risk profile. If you want to go more aggressive, you can always go for Rook. If you are trying to be just maybe it's your first foray and you have USDC, you just need to park somewhere to earn attractive yield. Bishop will be the one that is where you want to put your money.
Got
this ecosystem is actually sometimes described as initially a bit complicated, but the truth is when you actually break down into individual tokens, it's very easy to understand. I'm sure with the friends here from TradFi, they will find this kind of setup very, very familiar.
Very cool. Awesome. Rachel, it looks like you were dropping in and out. Hopefully your connection is stable now, and I'll take the opportunity to let you tell us what made you make the jump from TradFi to DeFi, what you were doing before, and what you're doing now.
Sure. Jump in and out as well, right? I think the decision to come to crypto is fairly easy for me. I would say I was at a structured derivative desk with Deutsche Bank for a few years. And I would say that, I mean, even today is true. I mean, lots of people join investment banking, not really out of the interest, but when people just graduated and I myself, at least, I mean, honestly speaking, joined the IB just because, I mean, it's very glamorous at the grounds and you get well paid, right? But soon after, you found that the thing you did really didn't make a good impact within organizations and even to the society as a whole. And you got easily get bored, and there would be lots of routine work in a very large organizations, let alone those politics. So later on, I actually got the chance to join a fintech company and financial, and started and had a chance to lead their first versions of blockchains platform when I study lots of knowledge about blockchains and build up the platform from scratch together with our technology team. That's when I learned a lot about blockchain and really see the difference that it can make and bring to the traditional finance industry. So I think deep rooted, there is a more ideological reasons, and I mean, with the developments out there, you could see that today's financial system doesn't work well. The things we read in the textbook just doesn't function well. And the full capitalism just lead to today's situation where lots of people get hurt, and then the Fed just keep pumping lots of cash into the systems, and it brings lots of problem to the general system as a whole. So I think blockchain really have an interesting angle to solve this problem, and although it might not be the ultimate form of the finance right now, but it's a good, you would say, a starting point. And you're lucky to be in part of this great trial experiments and pioneering in this space. I find it quite excited.
It was a desire to have a better impact in the world than what you were having or what you were felt you were doing in this feeling that, or this impression that there was something wrong with the way traditional finance works, and that blockchain can be a starting point to making this better, is kind of what inspired you.
Yeah, and together with fun, right? So why not?
Of course, yeah. I don't think there is a more exciting place to be at working in. But of course, I'm biased because I'm in it.
I'm with
Um,
you. Totally agree. Yeah.
yeah. So can you explain what SynFutures does? So you went from TradFi to fintech, and now you co-founded a DeFi company.
Yeah, SynFutures is a DeFi derivative protocol, and it differentiates itself than other protocol in that I think it's the first in market to launch a completely permissionless derivative market. So anyone could come here and list any trading pairs in 30 seconds. And we use one single LP strategy, so which means that you could use just say USDC or ETH just to create trading pair, including like any altcoins, cross-chain coins, and even off-chain those stock, gold, and other synthetic assets. We are about to launch something even more exciting, say, related to NFTs. So it's types of instrument where you could do leverage short on NFT. Yeah. So yeah.
Interesting. And are you, for NFTs, like, will you use an index of NFTs to go leverage long or short?
You're right. There's lots of financing instrument already out there. So fractional, for example, or and indexing already out there in the market. So we're partnering with some of the platform. Yeah.
Super interesting. Awesome. And then last but not least on this round, Sid, if you can tell us what inspired you to get into DeFi, what you were doing before and what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure. So previously I used to be working in securitization, so doing like mortgage and asset-backed bonds. That was primarily helping lending companies to raise debt so that they could invest in the growth of their business. So a lot of these lending companies, were actually run by quite entrepreneurial people. And so I always got a kick out of working with people who had vision and hustle and, a lot of autonomy in what they could do. I also happened to read, a lot of histories and biography. And so I was always really interested in the idea of, kind of the turning points for founders and leaders. And so one thing that struck me was this idea, which came from Jeff Bezos, of like the regret. So I had always wanted to go and build something myself, and I was kind of just looking for the right opportunity to do so. And I always knew if I never took it, I would have regretted not having made that move. So that was kind of what prompted me to take the leap. But why into DeFi? Well, I think, I always read a lot of history, and it struck me that the right financial technology made a huge difference for the world. So if you look back, to the birth of the joint stock company, this really was a financial invention that fueled the entire age of discovery. And so I could see that, blockchain and decentralized finance had a lot of potential here because it's kind of global in nature. And so I wanted to go and work on something where you could have this new financial technology, which actually had the potential to impact, any industry around the world in a non-linear fashion. So that was really what appealed to me about this space. And then what I do at Maple. So Maple's an institutional capital marketplace. So we really serve crypto native companies, providing them with a way to borrow under collateralized so that they can reinvest in the expansion of their business. So you can now see that it kind of connects that trend in history I really loved with the idea of having, a global impact, because that's how the crypto native space is laid out. On the other side of that marketplace, we provide an opportunity for lenders to earn a yield. And really, our mission is to expand the digital economy. So it's by connecting these companies with the capital that they need to expand and to grow.
Got it. So the idea of making non-regret moves and your feeling was this is going to make such a big impact in the financial system in finance that you would regret not being a part of it if you had a chance. So I think all of us can identify with that feeling of like being in front of something important.
Yeah, I think in every sector there's maybe one trend every one move every sort of 50 or 70 years, which if you catch it, it makes the entirety of the difference. And I think in finance, it's really blockchain.
Yeah. Okay. For all of you, like whoever wants to take this first, but what from your previous lives, what skill set, like what knowledge base have you found to be the most useful in DeFi, and what have you had to just like throw out the window?
I can go first. I think what I found most important is curiosity and the eager to learn, because every day you see lots of new things coming up, and I think not only for myself, but for the team, and then people who have this curiosity tend to, catch up with the trends and learn things fast. And this is super important because the industry is being evolving, and lots of new innovations been coming up. This one, and what I have to throw out is actually the TradFi mindset, traditional finance mindsets. I think we all have sort of a bit ego out there, and then coming to the industry, bearing in the mind, and have some sort of just like carrying ahead. Hey, we know what is good in the traditional finance. We know about risk management. We know about everything, but what strikes me most is that lots of things that doesn't make sense in the traditional world works so well in DeFi. I take it one simple example: AMM in for Uniswap. Right, when I first look at it, hey, how can you make a market by using a simple XY equals K formula? And then it looks like, oh, you are shorting gamma, you are doing everything that's not very rational. But and even for Bitcoin system itself, if you taking from a technology point of view, it's very hard for you to reach a consensus with finality. That's the technical discussion. But in this world, I think one lessons I learned is that I do not come and learn about anything with a judge in mind, and keep open, and then recognize that there's a reason that it's out there, and learn what is the reason is very important. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I could see how someone who comes from kind of years in traditional finance will come from those frameworks and those formulas in mind and try to apply them to DeFi. And when they're not there, or they see that things are different, maybe kind of the first reaction is to immediately assume these kind of new kids on the blockchain are doing things the wrong way. But yeah, you're saying, it's better to keep an open mind and maybe kind of reassess, and maybe they're just using a new way of doing things that could even be better. Who else wants to go for this one?
Anna, you want to take?
Yeah, sure. Fine. Yeah, really just chiming in with what Rachel just said. It was definitely a hindrance initially, because after you spend some amount of time with an institutional framework, it does shape your brain in a particular way. There's no question about it. So having to throw that out and having to really learn to be to be, I mean, like being curious is just, it's part of my nature. And I'm sure it applies to all of us. That's why we're here, right? But it's almost like, yeah, it's like special situations investing, right? You have to completely throw away a lot of your mental models and frameworks and either relearn or just basically, accept that certain rules don't apply in this universe. And in many cases, rules are still being shaped and they're not really well understood, right? So,
Right.
So to me, this is the most interesting thing is like very often if you try to, let's say, appraise a project or a product with a completely TradFi approach, you will absolutely fail and make mistakes, right? Like in most cases, you're going to be wrong, right?
Mm.
But it's the ability and necessity to think differently. It's connecting with a very, very diverse group of people who think differently, right? So it's a constant learning experience. I mean, it's definitely drinking from the firehouse, for sure. Yeah, that's what I love. Yeah.
Totally. Sid?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, probably the skills that actually helped me most didn't necessarily come from the TradFi world. They probably came more from like trying to read widely, probably lessons of psychology. So I would say, one that really stands out is something that Charlie Munger talks a lot about, which is just invert. And I like that idea because I think the most important thing you can do in this space is learn how to make decisions in conditions of uncertainty. And so usually the best way of doing that is to invert. So start from the end goal in mind and then work backwards and break the challenge down into like sequential steps. So it's just working backwards from your desired outcome instead of kind of meandering. Because I think when you're doing a startup, there's no one telling you how to do everything. So there's a lot of potential to kind of spin your wheels and go in fruitless directions unless you know really clearly where you want to end up.
Yeah, that's wise.
Is inverting accurately, right? Because you can invert in such a variety of ways.
True.
But yeah.
But it's good to have a goal in mind.
Oh no, of course. No. If
Yeah.
you don't have that, it's super easy to get sidetracked in crypto, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, there's
so much information.
more than enough distractions right now. Cool. Danny, if you want to add to that, if not, I have a bunch of follow-up questions.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like what I was going to say, like to add to everybody, I think things first of all to throw out the window for sure is email. No more emails. Things are all done over TG. No more hierarchy. People work in a very flat layer approach, and I really like that. And of course, there's no more consensus kind of getting that you need to get from stakeholders to get this thing done. It's everyone comes together and makes a decision there and then. It's that fast. I really like that. I think what was very useful, I guess, from the world they were in and bringing it into DeFi. I think other than, I guess, what everyone had also shared is your financial knowledge in terms of also the risk management. It's also, I think, the clear emphasis, and I think we all realize that, the amount of security, and maybe you can call it defense mechanism that we have to have on the protocol to ensure like things don't go awry. I think this is a very sensitive touch point, but for sure, I think all of us know the importance of focusing on this to make it work. I guess it's also the knowledge in running a business within the investment bank. I think investment bank gives you that sense of goal and objective that you need to focus. And we have to admit it, within the investment bank compared to where outside is, things do get done very fast. And I guess that is also your experience gaining and gain courage that this is how things can go and be ready and done in a short span of time. Obviously, now we know that in DeFi, things can actually run even faster. But yes, it does give you a very fundamental way of like doing things in a very fast, logical approach to get certain objectives set up. And I guess last but not least, I also learned how to work with different people coming from different backgrounds already within the investment bank kind of a setup. And I think that really helps moving into DeFi as well, with having an even more diverse background and working with people from around the globe.
Oh, very cool. I kind of take that for granted, just like working with people from all over, but it is like such an important part of this ecosystem. There's one point that keeps coming up, which is risk management, and a couple of you mentioned it on kind of why you were getting disappointed with traditional finance, and it was kind of this layers of complexity and how hard it was to understand risk and manage risk in traditional finance. I'm wondering if you are seeing the potential to recreate this in DeFi. Like, what is the risk there? Because it seems like DeFi protocols are and assets are becoming more and more complex. It's like you take DAI, you put it in Aave, you get a DAI, then you go and stake it in some yield farm, then you take that token and take that derivative and put it somewhere else. So it's like it feels like this system is getting more and more complex. And some of you were kind of running away from that from TradFi. So what are your thoughts? Like, is DeFi starting to replicate the same, the same layers of complexity and layers of risks that have caused so much trouble in TradFi? Go for it.
From my perspective, yes, we are carrying a bunch of systemic risks right now in DeFi. This is probably not the most popular opinion. People don't like talking about problems.
No, but so necessary. So I'm glad you're taking that stand. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, where do I start? We have a bunch of systemic problems in DeFi, right? From stablecoin risks, there's been like far too much printed, right? To like even now, for example, right? Like with what will happen to to DeFi if something were, God forbid, to go wrong with Curve, for instance, right? There are we both have the layering of complexity, and we have emerging, pretty foundational infrastructure pieces for DeFi, right? That, of course, are successful, because they managed to go to and so valuable because they're so deeply embedded in most of the sort of DeFi level infrastructure right now. But yeah, it's definitely an issue. I mean, there's a bunch of risk frameworks that I've seen around. Some are more detailed than others. But ultimately, I don't see this problem easily resolved. And I'd love to actually speak to more people that know more about this than I do, or have done more thinking about this than I do. But I don't see this problem easily resolved until we have some kind of a sort of common, let's say, definitions, right, or common language, right? There's a project in Switzerland called ADPA that you guys may be familiar with. So they started with that, with that common, financial language, common set of definitions, and the building using that, right? But it's not really it hasn't really gained kind of a lot of traction in DeFi. But from the first principles to, like, for me, this is certainly the right approach, right? And yes, as you pointed out, the level of complexity right now is pretty high, and obviously this is why, if you know what you're doing, the opportunity, for either generating alpha or for reasonably low risk-free arbitrage is still very high.
Right.
Right. So we in Akro have done, some work towards, simplifying and delivering an easy UX UI to users, but ultimately because it's so easy to play with the with the Legos, right? And because there's such a the bias that we have in this ecosystem is towards building fast and experimenting and breaking, right? The risk management and thinking defensively isn't really a natural part of how we think in DeFi, how most people think in DeFi, right?
Yeah. And you're right,
Obviously,
like
yeah.
those money Legos, how easy it is to put pieces together makes kind of complexity escalate quickly.
Yeah, but then if you look at protocols that both manage to scale and remain secure, right? They actually reasonably simple, relatively simple. If you look at Aave, if you look at Curve, like, I mean, in terms of math and the underlying mechanism design, that's what I mean, right? But new stuff that's coming to market is definitely quite complex, and yeah, I mean, I'm sure there'll be several blowups that we'll experience, for sure.
Several blowups. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Who else has a different take, or Sid, want to tell
Yeah,
me?
sure. So I think I think DeFi is definitely increasing in complexity. There's definitely risks inherent in it, but if we look at where DeFi sits overall, it's not even a rounding error on the total financial system. So if you had to carve out and say, let's set aside an area where people can, in a kind of not a way that is not likely to adversely impact the rest of the system, you would set aside a small bucket and then allow people to kind of experiment and to actually go through the process of creative destruction and build anti-fragile organizations. And this is what's kind of happening in DeFi. Like it's a very small subsection of the overall global financial system, and by allowing people to experiment and also to fail in those experiments, you're actually building anti-fragility within the system in a way that doesn't occur where you have too big to fail enterprises in the rest of the financial system. And so I think the other thing that is occurring is that as these organizations, or rather protocols, are needing to get battle tested before large amounts of money come in. So you might have some crazy yield farms which pick up $1 billion in a day or two. But for the most part, protocols like Curve, Compound are actually seeing a build up over time as they prove that they are resistant to to hacks and to exploits, and demonstrate the Lindy effect. So I think we're actually seeing in a very natural way resilience within the system build up. And it's better that occurs now while DeFi is such a small portion of the global financial system than when it's, say, 5 or 10% in future, where there is actually a very significant potential for a ripple effect if there is a failure.
Danny and Rachel, what are your thoughts on this? Like, do you think DeFi is replicating the layers of complexity and risk of TradFi, or are there differences there?
Any of us is okay.
So I think to say that I agree with Sid. First of all, I think we are experiencing all this for good cause. I think we have to be allowed to fail before we actually do much better. The truth is, we have to look back in history. I guess the financial system in total view across time has also have incidents happening, and there were losses as well. But they were having a much kind of a longer timeline in comparison to DeFi. I think if you look at DeFi, it may seem as though a lot of things could be happening, and things are happening on a routine basis, even in some sense. Let's hope not in that case. But it's actually having a very kind of a small timeline in comparison. It's only like a couple of years. So things are happening on a if you look at it as a frequently, but I think they get better each time. And you can see kind of the new protocol that's coming out that is already getting much better and better. For example, in Tranchess itself, we are using kind of a TWAP system. I think when I mentioned TWAP system initially in DeFi, people will be like, what's a TWAP? But if you're actually from kind of traditional finance, TWAP is something that has already been used in foreign exchange and in many kind of like asset classes. And that kind of prevents a discrete point print, or you can say a attack in that sense, because you're getting an average over 30 minutes to basically allow the price to be kind of a gradual constant over 30 minutes instead of a discrete kind of benchmark in that sense. And with that, I guess it's also showing that not only just us, but other protocols are also improving along that line and making kind of like their security more advanced and moving forward with times in that sense.
Yeah, and it looks like kind of what we were saying before. It's like you throw some things from TradFi out the window, but then there are obviously many things that should be ported over to DeFi, because TradFi has been around for centuries. So there is definitely kind of knowledge that DeFi protocols can use, like TWAP. It's just like one of many examples. Rachel, anything to add to that?
Great to just know what having said. Yes, the complexity has been increasing, and there's lots of risk. And then the other day, I actually agree with Sid. It's a sort of an anti-fragile system. If you read those book about complexity, everything, blockchain is really a self-evolving system that could correct it. But I would say that setting that apart, finance is finance. The risk profile wouldn't change, be it any technology that you use. So, I mean, if it is, so the financial logic is always the same, and risk will always be there. But there are two fundamental difference of risk in blockchains, DeFi. Number one, I would say it is not the risk that it will bring, but it is the levels of transparency out there. I mean, in a financial crisis, if everyone remember, I think it's vividly, so all those mortgage backed loans, etc. I think the problem out there is that people does not know what they're really buying, and then they do not know what's really behind the scene, and that's the problem that a blockchain can solve compared to the traditional world. Is number one. But the request is to be transparent and let everyone see it. And the second difference is that risk is always there. It is not about something that could get blown up. It's who shall pay for the consequences, right? So, I mean, in traditional finances, if the people taking a lot of risk, and even, I mean, the banks that will work with and took a lot of risk, but at the end of the day, those financial institutions stay well, and people still get well paid, right? But people who really suffer is all those small business that get broke, and the people that deposit their funds get broke. So, but in blockchains right now, without with these setups and the systems, and whoever trade those financial instruments will be the one who bear the ultimate consequence instead of the other people's. So that's I think that's the right way to do, and that's the difference in the risk and the consequences in traditional finance. Yeah.
Such great points. Yeah, I agree. I think the big difference with TradFi is the level of transparency. So here, you can have a lot of complexity, but at least you have the opportunity, though you do have to be technical, but at least you can ask a dev friend, if you're not technical yourself, to look at the contract and make out exactly what it is that you're holding, which isn't always the case in TradFi, and it's a lot more obscure what those securities and derivatives are made up of than in DeFi. And then the other piece is interesting as well. It's this just greater accountability. It's like token holders are the ones who take the hit when something goes wrong. Though I guess like that has the potential to change as DeFi becomes more massively adopted, and if people are taking out mortgages with DeFi, and if consumer loans are based on rates in the DeFi ecosystem, then if something blows up, then normal people also will be affected. But that's kind of thinking in the long term, and so which leads to my next question, and it's, what do you guys think? And this is kind of a very common question in this space, but really curious for your thoughts. Will DeFi take over TradFi? Will all of your old jobs disappear in, I don't know, 20 years from now or so? Or will DeFi and traditional finance coexist?
Definitely coexist. Or let's put it this way: it's all about central bank digital currencies, right? So if we assume that that's outside of the purview or scope of DeFi, right? I mean, ultimately, like we already live in a very much digital economy. That's been the case for a while. But in terms of the trustless portion of it, I'd love for it to become a lot bigger, for sure. But we also, obviously, we're seeing the the regulatory push. We'll see how that plays out, obviously. But the main separation point between the two is always going to be the KYC, AML, and ultimately, FATF and FATCA regulation. So I think that's the main reason. And also, like, we'll see how privacy protocols will evolve as well, right? Because ultimately, the benefits of DeFi that we're experiencing right now are also very much a function of the regulatory arbitrage. You can't deny that. So it's that will keep those two ecosystems. I'm sure they'll coexist, but and I'm sure that TradFi will absolutely incorporate a lot of the DeFi protocols and instruments, for sure. But it will be entirely a function of the regulatory stance to see just how big DeFi, especially privacy-oriented DeFi, will be allowed to get.
Interesting. Okay, so you definitely see DeFi and TradFi working together. Do you think DeFi has the potential of taking like a bigger market share than TradFi?
Bigger than TradFi? Probably, in relative terms, probably not, and it's only because of the regulatory pushback that I expect to see. Right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
What does the rest think?
So if I can add, I think the coexistence is very true, and I think it will happen. But that definitely, for sure, DeFi needs to do a lot of evolution in that sense to make it coexist in kind of the future that we are looking for. A bit of a gap of like how we are looking at between TradFi and DeFi. I think I saw some numbers released by PwC saying that the amount of asset under management is about 120 trillion. I think we all know in the world of crypto, maybe you're looking at top line 3 trillion over. So for sure, there is a gap that we need to fill. And in that gap, while filling up, we sure need to do a lot of improvement. I guess the protocol needs to evolve and stuff. And to clearly say that, like whether DeFi will be overtaking TradFi or vice versa, I maybe that's not the way to look at it. I think there will be a convergence. What we know as DeFi now could possibly become part of the financial system in the future. We do not know. I think blockchain technology has been focused on already by couple of the financial institutions, and they are taking a closer look at it. And if we have to look at recent news, there has been adoption of crypto across private banks, even investment bank themselves, to take this up and looking closely to do trading, offering products to clients, and so on and so forth. I think that's only the start. People will definitely be looking more, and I believe in the future, DeFi could really be part of TradFi in that sense. It's maybe too early to kind of like make that judgment call, but definitely we can see kind of the enthusiasm, or at least the preparation of people coming into taking a closer look at crypto and making these things work.
Quick comment as a follow-up to Dennis. I think the main driver for that will be actually combination of inflation / hyperinflation and negative interest rate environment in most jurisdictions, right? So a lot of the capital is driven by search for alternative yield, right? Which I'm sure you guys are seeing in your projects, right? So I think that would be the main driving force more than anything else.
Hope exactly. Dennis just now says, I wouldn't say it's a coexist, but a convergent. And it was like Apple define smartphone, right? There's phone and there's a camera and iPods out there, but gradually I think that they convert into this smartphone that we're now using today. And we all know that traditional finance has its problem, and today's DeFi wouldn't be the ultimate form, simply due to the fact that if there is this country out there, then no regulator will allow a non-KYC financial product rollouts massively in their own regulatory regime, right? So, but there's so much to learn from each other, and they could convert into a new forms of financial services. Yeah.
So maybe like TradFi or FinTech will be the KYC interface for DeFi, and they will be using DeFi as kind of on the back end of their systems to, operate more efficiently, offer higher yields, and so on. But the main kind of gateway to these protocols will be through these KYC kind of FinTech interfaces. Is how kind of these things converge.
Yes,
Yeah, this is one way, I think. Please, Anna.
No, sorry, I was just saying this is what actually the head of crypto for Revolut is exactly the strategy that they're pursuing.
Yeah, we're already seeing, I mean, in the crypto space, right? I mean, Circle integrating with Compounds and Fireblocks and Backdrop, and there could be, I mean, even more. I mean, from the TradFi point of view, they're employing this blockchain technology to offer financial services, and so I think the border could just sort of like eliminate and become vague, and then when it could come up with a complete a new set of financial services. Yeah.
Interesting. Sid?
Yeah, I think they're gonna. There's gonna be a convergence, but maybe to express it a different way, DeFi is kind of like a new modality of transporting money around the world, right? And it's similar to when you see, I guess, a new modality of transport, right? So when you had the advent of railway and that kind of replaced canals being built everywhere, you didn't see transport or logistics companies go away as an industry. And in the same way, like finance companies aren't going to go away. But the ones who fail to adopt the new modality, the new modality and the new paradigm and integrate that into their operations, they fail. But it's companies who adapt, and it will be the ones from traditional finance who adapt and integrate this new technology into their existing systems who survive. But it's probably not likely that you just say, like, finance gets replaced by DeFi. It's DeFi is a new tool and a new infrastructure on top of which financial operations are built, and it's one in which favors being nimble because it abstracts away a lot of the fixed costs of running a finance operation and converts them more to sort of variable costs, which is completely different from how all of the really large-scale existing financial institutions have been built up. They really represent the fact that transaction costs are huge, and so that's favored developing these massive economies of scale, whether it was having huge physical footprints and branches everywhere, or having mammoth compliance teams, which therefore fractionally lowered the cost of capital of providing various services. All of these things go away when you have a layer of infrastructure that's both global, low cost to operate, and effectively removes a lot of the fixed costs from being in the finance sector. Totally.
No, such great points. It'll be, if TradFi starts to adopt this new system, it'll look like a new financial system, right? Like all the old business models will have to be adapted into this new kind of more efficient infrastructure that blockchain allows. Okay. Running out of time, but I want to wrap up by asking you to give advice to those people who are thinking about making the same move that you did. Like, what would you tell them?
Imagine the worst thing that could happen, and it's usually not that bad. Most people who are in finance who might consider making the shift will opt not to do so because they're afraid they might get paid a little bit less, or or they might be without a job for a little while. It's really not that bad, and most people have enough savings to take the leap, and they would regret it if they didn't do that. So, I think the idea is, imagine the worst thing that could happen. Usually it's not actually that bad if you play it out in your head. And then hopefully that gives them a little bit more courage to make a bold move.
Nice.
Find a strong technical co-founder.
Nice one. Yeah, very practical.
I would say that not just stand there watching, but be part of it. Take first steps. I mean, be it just try and buy your first coins, or do the first trade on DeFi. Just go and get hands dirty and be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you can start kind of experimenting with DeFi before quitting, and that could give you, more confidence. And then finally, Danny?
Yeah, so completely agree with what the guys have just said. Really just get down to it, approach it with kind of like a downside in mind. I guess this is also kind of like a TradFi kind of a mindset. You think of your worst side and you think of like a measurement against your upside and you go for it, right? But I also want to say in the sense that when you are thinking about the move, you probably also need to ensure that you have done enough kind of research into trying out stuff like what Rachel has said before. If you have not yet kind of go into touching yourself, but not touching, but like experimenting like a DeFi, and also kind of like what we have already in out there, and say that you want to launch into this immediately, it can be a foolhardy. But again, on the other side of things, you could be running too many risk management kind of a mindset and risk analysis, thinking that what if this and what if that, that is also overthinking. Sometimes, I guess with enough research and understanding of it, you feel that you have enough knowledge. Just go for it. There's no need to also think too much of a downside and what ifs. If you don't do it, it always will be a what if. You should make it happen today.
Nice. If you don't do it, it will always be a what if. Okay, well, hopefully those who watch this will be encouraged and take as a way to as another piece to help them make the right decision, whether to stay in TradFi or come to DeFi, over to the fun side. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this panel. I really appreciate it. Those of you who, it's very late for you guys, so really appreciate you making the time. And thanks everyone for watching. Oh, almost forgot. I'm dropping a POAP for those who stuck around till the end of the panel. You need your reward. So dropping the POAP here in the chat. Be sure to go and claim it. And we will be dropping POAPs on every jam session, so you can start collecting your Defiant NFTs. And with that, I'll wrap up and thank the panelists again. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Camille.
Thanks everyone.
Great.
Real pleasure.